It was a typical Friday night for me. Pizza, chips, and tuning into Barnaby Bennett's Midnight Macabre on the local radio station. Barnaby was a legend. His voice, smooth as aged whiskey, would weave tales of haunted houses, vengeful spirits, and the downright unexplainable. Not that I believed it all, but it sure beat the droning of regular radio hosts. This night, however, was different. Barnaby was halfway through a story about a cursed lighthouse when the signal sputtered and died. Static, harsh and crackling, filled the airwaves. Then, silence. Just silence. I stared at the radio, a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. Barnaby wouldn't just drop a story mid-sentence. Technical difficulties, maybe? But even then, the silence felt heavy, loaded with unspoken dread. Minutes ticked by. The silence stretched, broken only by the occasional crackle of static. I flipped through the channels, hoping to catch a news report mentioning a station outage, but everything was normal. Unease morphed into genuine worry. Barnaby was an old man, sure, but he was fiercely dedicated to his show. Something had to be wrong. The next day, the news confirmed my fears. Barnaby Bennett had vanished. His apartment was untouched, no signs of struggle. The police were baffled. On social media, theories ran wild. Kidnapping, mental breakdown, even a staged publicity stunt. All I knew was, there was no way Barnaby would abandon his show in the middle of a story. Then, Sunday night came. I hesitated before turning on the radio, but morbid curiosity got the better of me. My heart hammered in my chest as I tuned in. Static filled my ears, the usual eerie intro music absent. Then, a voice. Faint, distorted, barely audible over the static. It was a whisper, a panicked plea for help. I jumped, sending the pizza box clattering to the floor. The whisper repeated, closer this time, laced with a raw terror that sent shivers down my spine. Then, silence again, and I imagined it. My phone buzzed with notifications. My friends were experiencing the same thing. The Midnight Macabre was back, but not the Midnight Macabre we knew. The following nights became a ritual of dread. Every night at midnight, the station would come alive with static and whispers. Sometimes, there were sounds. A disembodied giggle, a guttural growl, a blood-curdling scream. My sleep schedule went to hell. I couldn't escape the show. It seeped into my dreams, filling them with chilling images of empty studios and shadowed figures. A week later, a new element was added to the horror. Between the static and whispers, a faint, rhythmic scraping began. It sounded like fingernails scratching metal, frantic and desperate. My skin crawled, my stomach churning with a sickening dread. The scraping intensified, building to a crescendo before abruptly stopping. Then, a blood-curdling scream pierced the airwaves, a scream that echoed with raw terror and a bone-chilling finality. Silence descended, heavy and oppressive. I sat there, gasping for breath, the scream resonating in my skull. It wasn't a performance. It was genuine, primal fear. My phone was blowing up with messages from friends across town. Everyone who listened to the radio was experiencing the same paralyzing terror. That's when the research started. We scoured online forums, interviewed old radio buffs, digging into the history of the station, WXCR, the voice of the night. We learned it was one of the first radio stations in the city, built on the site of a former asylum. Legends swirled around the asylum, mistreatment, experiments, a fire that claimed countless lives. One name kept popping up, Dr. Edgar Crow, a notorious asylum doctor rumored to have conducted horrific experiments on the patients. Crow vanished during the fire, some claiming he met a gruesome end at the hands of the vengeful spirits he tormented. A connection started to form in my mind. Barnaby, the missing host, the whispers, the screams. Was it Dr. Crow, trapped in some spectral realm, using the radio waves as a conduit? Were the whispers Barnaby's pleas for help, trapped alongside the doctor? Fueled by morbid curiosity and a desperate need to understand, I decided to investigate. I gathered a motley crew of fellow horror enthusiasts. Sarah, the conspiracy theorist with a van full of ghost hunting equipment, and Ben, the techie who could hack a toaster, let alone a radio station. We snuck into WXCR after midnight, the deserted building an eerie monument to the past. Dust motes danced in the moonlight filtering through broken windows. The air crackled with nervous energy as we made our way to the studio. The door creaked open, revealing a room frozen in time. A vintage microphone perched on a dusty stand, scripts scattered across the desk, and a single empty chair facing the soundproofed booth. It was as if Barnaby had just vanished into thin air. Sarah, ever the drama queen, held up an EMF reader, the needle twitching wildly. See? High off the charts. This place is crawling with something. Ben, ever the pragmatist, was engrossed in the audio equipment. Look at these dials, he muttered, tracing his finger across a dusty control panel. Someone definitely messed with the settings. They're broadcasting on an unauthorized frequency now. We fumbled around in the dark, a mix of fear and morbid fascination propelling us forward. As if responding to Ben's touch, a low hum filled the room, building in intensity. Then, static erupted from the speakers, accompanied by a familiar voice, distorted but unmistakable. "Help me," Barnaby's voice whispered, laced with desperation. A wave of chills washed over me. It was definitely him. But something was wrong. He wasn't alone. A harsh, grating voice cut through the static, a voice that sent shivers down my spine. It sounded like nails on a chalkboard, laced with a cold, malicious glee. "He can't help you," it rasped. "You're mine now, broadcaster." A primal scream ripped through the room, a scream filled with unimaginable terror. Sarah shrieked, dropping her EMF reader. Ben fumbled with the controls, trying to mute the radio. The scream continued, morphing into a cacophony of tortured voices, the room filled with an oppressive wave of negativity. And then, an image flashed on the sound booth window. A fleeting glimpse of a gaunt figure, its eyes burning with an eerie blue light, its mouth stretched into a grotesque grin. It vanished as quickly as it appeared, but the image was burned into my mind, a confirmation of our worst fears. Fear threatened to drown me, but adrenaline kept me going. "We need to get out of here," I yelled, grabbing Sarah's arm. The room felt like it was closing in, the air thick with a suffocating dread. We stumbled out of the studio, the screams from the speakers echoing through the building. As we reached the main lobby, a blood-curdling growl erupted from behind us. We didn't dare look back, just sprinted through the darkness, the sound of heavy footsteps clattering after us. We burst out of the building, lungs burning, chests heaving. The night was filled with a strange silence, the screams from the radio abruptly cut off. Had we escaped? Had we just condemned Barnaby to an eternity of torment? The following days were a blur of sleepless nights and worried conversations. We shared our experience online, the internet exploding with theories. But the police wouldn't listen, dismissing it as a prank. We were just a bunch of teenagers, fueled by too much horror fiction and internet conspiracies. Then, one day, a video surfaced online. It was shaky camera work, obviously taken from a phone. It showed the interior of a radio studio, identical to the one at WXCR. An empty chair faced the soundproof booth. Then, a low hum filled the recording, followed by static. And then, a familiar voice. Barnaby's voice, clear and strong, a chilling contrast to the panicked whispers we had heard. "This is Barnaby Bennett, and this is Midnight Macabre," he announced, his voice devoid of the usual warmth and humor. "Tonight, we delve into the darkest corners of the human soul." The video cut off abruptly, but the message was clear. Barnaby wasn't coming back. He was trapped, forever a part of whatever horror haunted the radio waves. WXCR remained silent after that. The station mysteriously shut down. They claimed technical difficulties, a fire hazard. We knew better. One night, as insomnia had me staring at the ceiling, a faint crackling sound cut through the silence. It wasn't static, but a whisper, like a voice carried on the wind. It was faint, barely audible, but it sent a jolt of terror through me. It was Barnaby's voice, but it was different. This wasn't the panicked pleas we'd heard before. This voice was calm, almost serene. "Don't try to help me," it whispered. "It's too late. He enjoys the company." A cold sweat slicked my skin. "Who enjoys the company?" I whispered back, even though I knew it was pointless. The answer came in a chilling rasp that seemed to emanate from within the walls themselves. "Doctor, Crow welcomes you all to the Midnight Macabre." This wasn't just a haunting. This was a twisted game, and we were the unwitting pawns. We had stumbled into Dr. Crow's spectral domain, and now he wasn't letting go. The whispers started appearing everywhere, on phones with dead batteries, on car radios tuned to empty stations, even scrawled in distorted handwriting on steamed-up bathroom mirrors. They were taunts, invitations to play a game we didn't understand. Desperation gnawed at us. We couldn't keep living like this, constantly on edge, waiting for the next whisper, the next terrifying glimpse of the doctor's spectral form. We had to do something, even if it meant returning to WXCR, the very place that had fueled our nightmares. A plan, reckless and fueled by desperation, began to take shape. We couldn't silence Dr. Crow, but maybe, just maybe, we could disrupt his hold on Barnaby and the radio waves. But for that, we needed help, someone who understood the darkness we were facing. We needed a different kind of investigator, one who dealt not in facts and logic, but in things unseen. Sarah, ever the conspiracy theorist, led the charge on finding our unlikely ally. She scoured the internet's underbelly, unearthing whispers of a woman called Madame Zoya, a rumored spiritualist who operated out of a cluttered shop tucked away on a forgotten corner of Maple Street. The shop itself was a testament to the bizarre, dusty shelves overflowing with tarnished tarot cards and crystal spheres, the air thick with the scent of incense and something else, something faintly metallic and unsettling. Madame Zoya herself was a sight to behold. Wrapped in a flowing black robe, her face etched with a network of wrinkles that spoke of a life lived on the fringes of the ordinary, she regarded us with eyes that seemed to pierce straight into our souls. We shared our story, the chilling whispers, the haunting glimpses of Dr. Crow. The air crackled with nervous energy as Madame Zoya listened, her silence heavier than any words. When we finished, she steepled her fingers, her voice a low rasp that sent shivers down my spine. Dr. Edgar Crow, she began, was a man consumed by darkness. Even in the afterlife, his restless spirit seeks to inflict his torment upon others. But fear is his weapon. Weaken that, and you weaken him. Her words were a beacon of hope in a sea of dread. She outlined a plan, a strange and elaborate ritual involving ancient incantations, sanctified salt, and a personal object belonging to Barnaby. The ritual, she warned, wouldn't banish Dr. Crow. That might be beyond even her considerable talents. But it could sever his hold on the radio waves, disrupt his game, and maybe, just maybe, allow Barnaby a sliver of peace. The night of the ritual arrived, a storm raging outside mirroring the tempest brewing within us. WXCR, abandoned and shrouded in darkness, loomed like a skeletal monument. Armed with Madame Zoya's instructions and hearts hammered with an unholy mix of fear and determination, we crept inside. The air hung heavy with a chilling silence, the whispers seemingly dormant for now. We made our way to the studio, the room where it all began. The dust motes danced in the moonlight filtering through the broken windows, the scene eerily familiar. We set up the ritual, hearts pounding a frantic rhythm against our ribs. Madame Zoya chanted in a language that sounded both ancient and alien, her voice echoing eerily in the abandoned building. As the ritual reached its climax, a wave of icy dread washed over us. The room temperature plummeted, the air crackling with unseen energy. A shadowy figure coalesced in the corner of the room, a grotesque parody of Dr. Crow, his eyes blazing with malevolent fury. We stumbled back in fear, but Madame Zoya held her ground, her voice rising above the storm brewing outside. As she uttered the final incantation, the room pulsed with a blinding white light. The spectral form of Dr. Crow contorted in rage, the air filled with a deafening screech. Then, with a final, ear-splitting shriek, he vanished. Silence descended, profound and suffocating. We stood there, gasping for breath, the weight of the experience pressing down on us. As we cautiously approached the soundproof booth, a single tear rolled down Sarah's cheek. The microphone was still there, untouched by time. A single piece of paper lay beside it, scrawled in a familiar hand. We exchanged nervous glances before Sarah, her voice barely a whisper, reached for the note. It contained a single sentence, a message etched in desperation and tinged with a newfound acceptance. The show must go on.